few months ago, I made a video about a difficult Turkish exam question, and that video seemed to resonate with a lot of people. There were comments in Turkish that were glad that people could see the pain that they had to go through, and there were plenty of comments lamenting the state of the education system. Let me show you some of the comments that gained a lot of support. This one translates to, "You only have a black pen, but create a rainbow." This is a summary of the Turkish education system. And this one says that the questions are of high quality, but unfortunately there is no system that will take us to the answers of those questions. Now, I have never studied in Turkey and I don't know enough to agree or disagree with these statements, but they do relate to a larger sentiment that we see in many other countries. And that is that the exam is not the challenge. The real challenge is competing against the other students. The exam in question is the AYT paper used to gain entrance into Turkish universities. The population of Turkey is 85 million, and over 2 million students are taking this test, hoping to be in the top 50,000 to get into the good universities. When entry is so competitive, you see exams getting harder to try and separate people, but many are left feeling frustrated by the fact that making exams harder doesn't raise the quality of education, and instead can leave students feeling dejected and hating school. This comment said, "Geography is destiny," and this one said, "May God help Turkish, Indian and South Korean students," assumably talking about the tough exams they all have. Another common thread was people saying that even if you're lucky enough to ace this exam, get into a good university and graduate, that there are still not many jobs waiting for you at the end. This OECD unemployment rate data does show that Turkey has a pretty high unemployment rate. The latest figures are around 11.2%, whilst the USA and the UK are at 4% and Australia 4.2%. It also seems like a lot of the top students aspire to go overseas, contributing to what they call brain drain, where a country's brightest people aren't sticking around to help it grow. I plan to work through another one of the tough questions from the AYT exam paper, and I will get to doing that in this video, but first I got distracted by another comment that told me to check out the LGS exam given to middle schoolers in Turkey as a high school entrance exam. It is very hard. A math question this year was taken from the university exam. They are literally forcing students to solve university level questions at age 13 to 14. So naturally, I wanted to take a look. Here's the paper, and yes, it's really hard. Apparently, students studying for this are putting in 8+ hour study days, making it the youngest example of that kind of hard work I've seen for an exam yet. Let's take a look at the last question on the math section. We've got these pie charts which show the distribution of televisions sold in an electronics store in 2019 and 2020. K, L and M are 3 different types of televisions. It says that while the number of L brand televisions sold in the store in 2020 decreased by 25 compared to 2019, the M brand televisions increased in number by 40. According to this, what is the number of K brand televisions sold in 2019? So we want to know how many televisions does this slice of pie represent? That would be easy to do if, for example, we knew how many televisions were sold in total, either in 2019 or 2020, but that's not information that we have. So this becomes quite tricky. Please do have a go at solving it. And while you're at it, I would like to quickly thank the sponsor of this video, Babbel. I've done a lot of translating to try and read these exam questions and the comments, and I've actually been using Babbel to learn just the basics from the Turkish language to make it easier for me to pick out keywords. Babbel is a top language learning app that teaches real-world practical conversations through 10-minute interactive lessons, as well as podcasts, games, videos, and live classes. Babbel teaches more than just vocab words, and also teaches you about the language's culture, people, history, and traditions. Hoşça kal.
Hoşça kal.
İyi günler.
İyi günler.
Learning a new language is the perfect way to work on yourself in 2022, and Babbel is offering a 20-day money-back guarantee. You can get 65% off by going to my link, which is down in the description. Teşekkürler Babbel, and now let's take a look at the solution. So there might be a number of ways to solve it, but the simplest way I found was to try and find out how many TVs each degree of the pie represents. I'm going to define this variable x, which is how many TVs there are in each degree of the pie in 2019. And also I'm going to define y, which is the same thing but for the 2020 pie chart. Now let's look at the chart. We will want to know how many degrees are in this section K. At first glance, it might look like it's a third, 120, like this one down here. But actually it's not. If this one here, L, is 90 degrees, M is 120, and in total this has to add to 360, then K will actually be 150 degrees. Over here it's a bit more simple. We've got 90, 90, and so this one would have to be 180. If we can find X, then the problem will be solved by finding 150 times X. That will be how many TVs this chunk represents. If that's 150x, then this one here is 90x, 120x. Since the number of M brand televisions increases in number by 40, then this section here will be 120x plus 40. And since L decreases in number by 25, this one here will be 90x minus 25. But these segments can also be represented using y. This one is also 90 degrees times y, and this one down here is 180y. And since these represent the same number of TVs in this chunk, we can write 90x minus 25 is equal to 90y. And for this one, 120x plus 40 is equal to 180y. This is our key to solving the problem. We've got two unknowns, but also two equations, so we can solve this for both x and y. Rearranging the top one for y and subbing that into the second one, I get x to be 3 over 2. Remember what we wanted to solve the problem was 150x? So 150 times 3 over 2, well that is 450 over 2, which is equal to 225, meaning that C is the correct answer. Now it took me a few goes to get there, but if you found this easily, then congratulations, you're as smart as a Turkish 13-year-old. I can't help but think that if you already are studying so hard for exams this early, that by the time you get to those tougher university entrance exams, you may have already burnt out. But it seems like even getting into some of the best high schools is a competitive process. This is a question from that notorious university entrance exam. This is from the 2021 AYT mathematics paper. Translated, it says that p of x is a fourth degree polynomial with real coefficients, and it gives the inequality that p of x is bigger than or equal to x. It gives us three values of p of x at x's 1, 2, and 3, and it asks us to find the value of p of x at x is equal to 4. Now on an axis of x and p of x, this line here represents where p of x is equal to x. Our function is called p of x, but it could just as easily have been called y, and you may recognize this as more commonly called the line y equals x. This inequality tells us that the value of our function will always exist above or at this line, so in this region here. In fact, we can plot some of the points. At x is equal to 1, p of x is also equal to 1, so that point is on the line. The same thing happens at x is equal to 3. In between, at x is equal to 2, the value of p of x is 4, so it will be somewhere up here. And since we know it's a fourth degree polynomial, or a quartic, we know it'll be a wibbly-wobbly shape. But because it can't pass down into this region down here, it must look something like this. And our question wants us to find the value when x is equal to 4, so when it's somewhere up here. Finding the value of this polynomial at any x value would be easy if only we had the equation of this line. But the equation of this line is slightly hard to find when we look at it from this perspective. Instead, let's take a look at our inequality. If we subtract x from both sides, we have that p of x minus x is bigger than or equal to 0. Subtracting x off this function makes it something that's easier to find an equation for because it will intersect the x-axis. Plotting p of x minus x, we get something that looks more like this. And you can see where I've got these points from. I just subtracted x from these values here. 1 minus 1 would give us a value of 0 there. 4 minus 2 gives the coordinate 2, 2. And 3 minus 3 gives the coordinate 3, 0. I know the x-intercepts of this quartic, so I can actually write its equation. I'd get k, which is some scale factor that we're yet to find, x minus 1 squared times x minus 3 squared. If you're slightly unfamiliar with quartics, you may wonder how I know that these are both squared. Well, I can tell what they call the multiplicity of these zeros by actually looking at the graph. Also called the order, the multiplicity is how many zeros are at the x-intercept. For example, if the multiplicity was 1, that would be if this bracket wasn't squared. It was just a single value of x. In that case, the x-intercept would be cut in a linear fashion. The intercept would look something like this, or like this. With a multiplicity of 2, that's when we would see an x squared. And the intercept would look like a quadratic, something like this or this. This is for a multiplicity of 2, but also 4, 6, 8, and in fact any even number. And a multiplicity of 3, or of 5, 7, 9, and any other odd number, we would see something that looks like this, where the intercept is in there. Fun fact is, the higher this number of multiplicity, the flatter this section will look. Our x-intercepts come down and turn around in that sort of quadratic function, so that's why we can say that that would be squared. If we're dealing with a quartic, that is a power of x to the 4, then the total multiplicities added together will equal 4. We do still want to find the value of k, and we can do that using these points here. If we used x equals 1, we'd end up with 1 minus 1 is 0, that would all be 0, and it wouldn't be useful for finding k. Same thing would happen if we used 3. That's probably why they've given us this one in between. If p of 2 minus 2 is equal to 2, we'd have k. 2 minus 1 is 1 squared. 2 minus 3 is minus 1 squared. That would all be 1, and k would just be equal to 2. So this would be our final equation for p of x minus x, and that's all we need to be able to find p of 4. Plugging in x is equal to 4, it works out to give us the answer of 22. Luckily, that's one of our options, and so we can say that B is the right answer. I know that in the real exam you get a lot less time than I've taken here, but I'm trying to explain things as I go, especially if this problem is an unfamiliar type for you. What makes the exam even harder is that this might be an unfamiliar question to almost everyone. It doesn't look like it appears in last year's exam, and so there's not really any warning to prepare for something like this. Interestingly, this exam made the news in Turkey this week after a decision from the Council of Higher Education to change the minimum passing score. Whilst entry to the top universities will remain very competitive, students could still be placed in a less competitive program after getting as little as one question correct. In Turkey, there are many higher education institutes, but they're not all of the same quality. Perhaps this decision could lead to more low-quality institutes offering degrees that don't help to reduce the country's unemployment. Or we'll see private universities now accepting anyone who's willing to pay the tuition fee. Thanks for watching this video, and again, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. This video is in honour of today's Patron Cat of the Day, Latte, sent in by Connor.